Alright, let's try this again. I gotta block the screen so I don't stare at myself. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. So, I got a bit of a cold, or I don't feel right. Hence why, one of the reasons I haven't been on a lot. Other reason, though, like I said in the last video, is just because of things I was going through and certain things I've come to realize, taking some Jordan Peterson advice, which I'm going to get into, and that is just, that goes along with what I realized that I have to do as a man to, kind of goes along with the responsibility shit he was talking about. And, through his work, I was able to kind of see where I am. I've always said I probably have ADD, and then whenever he talks about ADHD and ADD, being these catch-all things, meaning people may not necessarily have those. There probably is a few people that are just straight ADD, ADHD, possibly, but to put as many people that are on Ritalin in our society, based on the fact that Ritalin, Concerta, whatever you use, Adderall, just because it makes you focus, calm, not hyperactive, it does not mean you had ADHD, because you can give a calm person Ritalin, Adderall, Concerta, whatever you want to call it, and they will be even calmer. They'll be able to focus. At my job interview, I talked about my son being on ADHD, and the guy interviewing me, he stopped and he told me a couple things. He told me, for one, I should try to get my son, who has ADHD, into coding. He said because he was a chemical engineer at the company that I was trying to work at, and he learned a bit of coding, and the fact that he knew coding is how he got jobs. And his father was a chemical engineer, and a lot of his friends are chemical engineers, but they don't know how to do coding, and because of that, they can't find jobs anywhere. But because he knows how to do coding, he can get a job anywhere, and it doesn't even matter if he had another skill. Specifically, the chemical engineer part didn't matter. He could do any job as long as he can code, because they were looking for coders like crazy. And he told me that he has a friend who also has ADD or ADHD, I forget which one, and whenever he takes his medication, he can code for hours and hours and hours on end, because he's just focused, he's in the zone, and he does it well. And I know people at university and colleges buy Adderall. There's fucking documentaries, whether they're true or not, I don't know, but you can watch documentaries about Adderall and how kids want to buy it, use it. The kids are supposed to take it are selling it, basically, to other kids that want to use it because they don't no longer want to use it, kind of thing. So it's kind of funny, but anyways. So just at my interview, that was discussed, and so I thought it was a pretty weird coincidence as well. The guy training me tells me about that, but it was good advice, because he was basically saying coding is the thing that, if you know how to do, it's one of the greatest tools you can have today's day and age. So for any of my children, whatever they want to do for a living, have their second, third option, whatever it is, if they can get into the computer coding, they're going to be set for life, because coders are getting all the jobs at the moment. But from anything from like the Bitcoin to just any kind of computer engineering to just regular stuff, doing websites for people and shit like that. There's so many jobs you can do if you know how to do coding. So that's some good advice for anybody out there who's a parent or who doesn't know what they want to do with their life. Well, until you figure it out, learn some computer coding, and you're going to open up your options tenfold, basically, maybe even 100-fold. That's not what I want to talk about. So when I ended the last video, I was talking about how I couldn't do that woman's birth chart being in a bad place, being in upset, sad, depressed, whatever I was in, because I had to go back to work. Which I eventually realized that it's me doing this, thinking this way, feeling this way. I had how many years off? During that time, I could have been trying to find a job that I wanted to do, and it would have been something I picked, and I didn't do that. I just kind of pissed the time away, enjoying it and learning. And I'm glad I learned all that I learned, and I'm glad I learned what I'm about to tell you. But the point is, I can't blame anybody else for what's going on but myself. I put myself in this situation, and now it's time to get myself out. But anyway, so when it comes to her birth chart, being that I was in whatever you want to call it, dark night of the soul, doing the shadow work, all that stuff, I wouldn't be able to do it from a good place. All the negative aspects in her chart I would be emphasizing on, and even the positive ones I'd probably give her just a negative twist, because like attracts like. I was in a negative place, so her chart was going to be reflected negatively, And the reverse is true, which is how I ended the last video. If I was too positive in love and light and thinking everything's great, kind of like my video about waxing and waning, when the moon is waxing, I'm way more positive and I don't worry about money and this and that. It's easier for me to be positive. When the moon's waning, as it is now, it's way more easy for me to be negative and, self-loathing and depressed and, oh, woe is me, I'm so woe, and complaining about everything, which is kind of the way I am right now, which is, just goes to show you that I'm not lying when I tell you this shit. It's kind of how it works for me. Being that my moon is in my second house. Second house is ruled by Taurus. My second house is your finances and all that crap. That's what I went through in my last episode. So because when the moon waxes and waning, like I said, it's easy for me to either be happy being poor or being pissed off being poor, because that's what the second house is about. But anyways, so I haven't finished her chart because of that. That being said, I was using my intuition to do her chart. So I was kind of getting into the fact that I normally ask questions for my meditations, and I ask questions before sleep so I can get the answers. But for the last month, probably more now, I was supposed to be doing this woman's chart. So the questions I was giving were for every sign. Her sign, whatever sign her ascendant line started in, I would say, okay. And I would ask the question, what do I need to know about this? And then I would come up with the correspondences and the answers by morning, kind of thing. And to speed up the process, I would do a meditation once a day, and I would ask a question about whatever sign, and then before bed I would ask the question about the sign. So this way my bias wouldn't get in the way. This way my negative emotions wouldn't get in the way, which they probably still would have an effect on it, but I was trying to do my best to not let it taint her chart. Because your birth chart's a very personal and very important thing. And if I'm the first person looking at her chart, I already gave her a description, that the website I used to make her chart, I already gave her that initial one. So she's got something to look at. And, anybody can put their information anywhere and pay for one. But I didn't want to be the first one giving her a reading and, being one of my first readings on somebody I don't know and just completely fuck it right up, I didn't want to do that. That wouldn't be right. And then she might just think astrology, magic, everything's just bullshit. So unfortunately, I'm being over analytical, being very, which is what I do for everything. And I'll tell my wife one thing in the morning, and then by the afternoon, I've already changed it. By the night, I changed back. I'm just all over the fucking place half the time, and God only knows why. But the point is, knowing that I'm going through this process for the second time that I am conscious about. I probably had these issues going a long time, but it's not until I got into like self-development, spirituality, that I realized that this is one of the classifications of, dark night of the soul, shadow work, as Carl-Jung put it. And it's very important. And even, pretty cool that, the first time I did this, I was watching Jordan Peterson, but I didn't even know it was him. And the second time it comes around, one of the identifiers was like, holy fuck, every time I go through this process, Jordan Peterson pops up to help me through it. And it's not really Jordan Peterson per se, it's Carl-Jung, but he just talks about Carl-Jung so much that you don't have to read Carl-Jung's books if you don't want to, which, excuse me, I suggest, especially the ones he suggested, Volume 9 and both Volume 9. Volume 9 is 2 books, A and B. First one, I forget the name of it, something about personalities or personas, and the second one is Ion. Anyways, I have links on Spreaker to get the free PDFs for both those books. So you go to, I don't think it's my newest video or my newest episode, but it's my second. Anyways, if you just go to the description or the info section of my videos, you'll see the link. So I don't even think you have to watch the show. So if you don't want to watch or hear what I have to say, just want to get the links and just do that. I don't really give a shit what you do. But anyways, back to the point. So like I said, to face my fear of working this job I don't want to work / leaving my daughter is probably where this whole thing centers and stems from, which isn't necessarily shadow work, is not facing your fears, but for me it's all tied in together, because the last job I left or was forced to leave, I incorporated things that I thought I learned from Carl-Jung, meaning to stand up for yourself, to not be a pushover. Like I said, people around me that I thought were being negative, I didn't want to talk to anymore. I realized that it was harming me and I didn't want to be around it. It was toxic, for example. However, there's probably better ways I could have dealt with that than the way I dealt with it. And, just putting out there that I'm not going to be fucked with. being that dangerous person with teeth, or realizing that I could harm people, but I won't. I choose not to. Is intimidating to some people, possibly. And I was already. I don't want to say I was already an intimidating person prior to that, but I kind of went around like, if you yell at me, I'm going to yell back at you. So most people wouldn't start anything with me. However, a lot of people talked behind my back because of the fact that they knew if they said something to my face, I would say something back. It's kind of the same situation as my stepson. A lot of people, and I try to tell him that because he thinks he knows it all at times, and he does know a lot. He is a smart little boy, but the point is, most people will just go along with him because they know if they call him out on it, he will react. And I'm kind of saying in this situation that I'm very similar in that way, and that might have been fake of me at that job. It might have been, thinking I'm incorporating my shadow self, but really, I was just kind of putting out there, hey, I'm tough. Don't fuck with me. I'm gonna punch you out, knock you out, whatever, punch you, whatever, however you want to word that. It's kind of like that little dog yapping so loud at the big dog. It's trying to scare him away, saying, look at me, I'm scary, I'm scary. Kind of like the kid going around saying he can fight, telling everybody about all his fighting stories. He's trying to make it look like he's a good fighter when really he's never been in a fight in his life. I think I have a better understanding of all this now. But this is not what I learned from Jordan Peterson this time around. This is just little things that I'm coming into realizing. But contributing to this corrupt society was another one of my fears. And I don't necessarily think the society is corrupt, as the way the money is split up, and the way some people. And I was like this very much, working and spending the money, and just realizing there's more money that's going to come because I'm still working. So it doesn't matter if I pay the bills now or later. And now more than ever, I understand that it's way more important to try to get your bills paid off, especially the ones that have a time limit or an actual end in sight. The ones that don't have an end in sight, I don't really worry about, because they're always going to need your money when it comes to like your water tax, your water tax, your land tax. They need us to pay those regardless. There's not really something they can implement things, scare tactics and all that, but for the most part, I'm not worried about that because it is what it is, and it has to be paid. But things like your car that you could pay off and be done with, those are things that the faster you pay it off, the faster you're without that payment. So that's awesome. But that's how I'm thinking now. I've changed my whole thinking from being, somebody who is very Venusian. I went over this in my last episode, being that my moon and Venus are together, both in the second house, the moon reflecting whatever sign, symbol, or planet it's with, more of the planet than anything. So my moon would act like Venus, because the moon's reflective, water's reflective, right? Water represents the moon. You look at the water, especially if there's a nice sunrise or something like that, you're going to see the sky and the water. It's reflective, right? So that's what the moon does. It reflects the sun's light. So any planet that's in the same house or sign as the moon, very close to the moon, it's going to reflect the same attributes. Therefore, my moon being the second house, being all about financial stuff, like I said, when it's waxing and waning, I have an easier or harder time dealing with the money situation going on in my house, which could kind of make me look bipolar in some instances. And it's really not being bipolar, it's being affected by the moon and what house it's in. If my moon was in a different house, then whatever attributes that house represents, whether it would be the one with family, or the one about sex, death, and transformation, or whatever the case is. If my moon was in those ones, but those would be the issues I would have trouble with when the moon was waxing and waning. And on top of that, because the moon is in the second house, it has to do with financial and stuff like that. Venus has a lot to do with material possessions, financial stuff. How do you look? How do you feel? Which is why, as a child, I was super confident. I thought I was good looking, and I told everybody I was good looking. I was considered cocky and conceited. Whereas now, not so much. I'm kind of the inverse of that. I'm very, at this very moment right now, I don't care as much when I go out in public about if I'm shaven, if I have pimples on my face. Well, the pimples still bug me. My hair is done and all that, but there was a point in time where I couldn't even go anywhere unless I had to fucking work out first. I had to clean my house. It was all about presentation, and all the shit was fake, really. Yeah, I clean my house before people come, but my house isn't always clean. So, but I'm trying to put off that vibe, like, oh, I'm a clean person. You know, just like if I had to work out before I did something, I had to put off that vibe that, hey, I'm a big buff guy or whatever, you know. I want that pump for that first impression that people saw me. So, and that's all tied in together with the moon being in that second house, you know. I forgot where the fuck I was going with that. But I was just talking about, I guess, about astrology. But anyways, so the Scrub Society, the monetary system and all that, like I said, with the Venus, where my moon and my Venus is situated, has a lot to do with that. Knowing what I know now, knowing that my fears are tied into going back to work, working a job that I hate. I'm worrying more about it. I'm putting anxiety on it, basically. I'm stressing about something that hasn't happened yet, and that's been one of the things I've been trying to teach people to not do. And I'm doing that very fucking thing at this moment. And, you know, that was enlightening to find out. But I've been teaching it to try not to, telling people, you know, you focus on having fucking cancer, you put fear emotion in that, you're going to give yourself cancer. If you focus on your money problems and you put emotion in that, you're going to have money problems. So as I'm teaching this, I'm trying to fucking help people, and at the same fucking time, I'm doing the exact thing that I'm trying to teach people not to do. I'm being a hypocrite. I'm being a fucking walking contradiction. And I can't stand that. And then to come to realize that I'm doing that very thing I fucking can't stand, I was like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Like, what is going on, you know? So I had to fucking dig deep. I had to take time off of everything. And for the last few days, just fucking do nothing. Just lay on the couch with my kids, you know, for the most part, which, you know, I did and I didn't. I would still listen to Peterson when I was tidying up and making lunches and all that, but I spent a lot of time just laying on the couch with the two girls. Well, with Owen before he got in trouble, if he was upstairs with us helping with the baby or whatever. But for the most part, the boys go downstairs. And they don't have to, you know, like Austin was just upstairs not too long ago, on the couch for the most part. You know, if me and the wife aren't going to sleep, or it's not like 9 or 10 o'clock, I don't care who's up in the living room hanging out with us, but at a certain time, it's like, no, we need our time, go downstairs. But anyways, coming into this realization that, you know, the very thing I fear was the thing I'm trying to teach people to not do, it was enlightening and it helped me realize that, you know, the first time I did the Dark Night of Soul helped me during that time, but it wasn't completely done. So you can also take the point of view that I'm saying it's not a one and done, but maybe if you do it right the first time, you could potentially have a one and done. So as much as I said, you know, I don't think anybody could have a one and done when it comes to your Dark Night of the Soul, doing the shadow work and all that. I think you have to continuously work at it. It's kind of like with the emotional blocks, you know, you're going to eventually have emotional blocks build up, unless, like I said, you live in the fucking forest, but they're going to keep building up eventually. But anyway, so what did I come to? What did I realize I need to fucking do to basically get out of this self-loathing, desperate fucking, not desperate, but Jesus, I can't even think of the word, depression, basically, that I've been going through. Well, I haven't completely gone through it yet, so I can only tell you what I think I realized. And it's better, basically, I gotta face it. I gotta jump back in, but this time it's gonna be a choice, you know. After, you know, taking almost 3 years off and trying to piece all this shit together, you know, the magic, the fucking law of attraction, the spiritual side of things, you know, the connecting to source and spirit, to trying to give up the drugs completely and not think about it anymore, you know, all this stuff. I can now go back and be a better, you know, worker by choice and not by quote unquote forced slavery. You know, we traded in owning and abusing slaves to becoming slaves ourselves. All right, and that's why in the last episode I did on Spreaker, I played a part where Jordan Peterson actually said that, and it's an idea that comes from CARL-JUNG once again. That you know how everybody talks about us being slaves, you know, and the government being our slavers, I guess, or the elite groups, basically by paying taxes and, you know, whether or not our birth certificate does have money that we can claim and use, you know, unless you do that process, you're not really going to know. You can only go by what other people say. And to me, I think there's some validity, and I think there is something to that. But the same sense, if you can't do that for whatever reason, whether it's because you fucking have a family or you can't do it because you have too many contracts in your name, you're married, have vehicles, and if you were to go get rid of your sin and all that, you could technically lose those things. I mean, if you think that, then you got to do a little bit more background on this stuff, because there are ways around that, I think. But once again, I've never done it, so I can't tell you either. So I'm not going to pretend to know something that I've never done. But what I do know is, or what I suspect is, if you ponder this idea of, instead of owning slaves and abusing slaves, that we've now become the slave. Okay, when you add that idea to what we know about karma and ancestral DNA, and what great philosophers and mages and masters and the alchemists and witches and ceremonial magicians. Okay, when you add those ideas that all these people have had about your ancestral DNA, Birch talks about the fact that we've all been a different race. Dolores Cannon talked about, if you were a fucking KKK member being mean to black people, well, then the next life you're going to come back as a fucking black person, which could put a whole new twist on Martin Luther King, and he would be the example of, instead of becoming a black person and trying to oppress white people or be discriminative and racist towards white people, you say, I have a fucking dream. And in this dream, it was whites and blacks get along for the rest of humankind, and there one day be a black president. And that's not another thing. This is kind of the idea I had, and so on have stated. The New Age, Old Age, hypnotherapists, channelers, mediums say that everyone in the past and future, like Dolores Cannon stated, that if you were, a member of KKK, okay, I'm just repeating shit I just repeated. Sorry about that. I'm looking at my notes here, and it's hard to focus right now because I'm tired and I'm a little stuffed up and shit. But so. The point, and if you don't get stuck on the wheel of reincarnation, and we become more dense and worse as we go, and now we think we're slaves, but maybe we're paying back our karma, for all the terrible things we've done to each other. And once you go and continue to go through an awakening or initiation and the darkness of the soul, you come to this or similar truth. And once you truly remove this block and repay the debt of the karma of, making people suffer over and over in every lifetime you've had, maybe once you just come to this realization, you don't have to necessarily pay the debt back. But if you're not going to realize it, if you're not going to come to this realization, then yeah, the only place for you is to be a little slave until you can figure this out, basically. Being that little slave, being quote unquote oppressed by the elite, the governmental groups and all that, that's there to basically push onto you that lower chakra initiation that I talk about so much, that Saturn chakra, that fear-based media that will bring onto you, when you realize everything you learned is probably not true, when you realize that there's a lot of fucking scary things out there in the world and all that, you start opening up and you start realizing, well, who the fuck am I? And that alone starts the initiation process. And so the point I'm trying to get at here is, when you realize that, okay, I didn't want to work anymore. Oh, I'll get into this in a second. But anyway, so when you realize that, working is probably just paying off the slave debt. Whenever, like if you go by what Dolores Cannon said, if you were oppressing somebody, well, then you're going to come back as the oppressed, so you know how it feels to be on the other side. We're all just actors playing these fucking roles. And until we're all on the same page and we're going to say, you know what, we're going to stop acting and we're just going to be nice to each other. And if we're nice to each other, we stop fucking caring about material possessions to a certain extent, because you got to have some pleasure in life. You can't just go through life fucking meditating it away and thinking that's all it is, because not everybody's built the same. Some people can meditate probably all their life, and other people probably can't. You know what I mean? Probably will have to look forward to something. Hello? Yeah, baby, what? Yeah, I'll be done in a second. What? If you guys want to, but I'll be done in about 10 minutes if you want me to go with you. So tell that to mom and figure it out. I can only go with you in about 10 minutes. So if you guys want to go, you can go. And if you want to wait 10 minutes, then I'll go with you. So it's up to you. Sorry about that. I only have one smoke left, and I just lit it right now, so they want to know if I'm going to go buy smokes or not. And I said about 10 minutes once I get through this, because I've already been on here probably for, I don't know, 20 minutes. Once again, I have my notes up so I can't see my face, so I don't get all freaked out of how I look like. But anyways, so point is, you know, you have to pay back this debt to a certain extent. And, most people have probably already paid back the debt, and they're just working because that's their habitual state. That's how they've been taught to be in school and all that. And that part of the reason might be, well, we have to keep people working to keep things going along. But for the most part, it's basically the fact that one day they're going to wake up and realize, why am I working for this? And this is going to make people wake up and have that lower chakra open up their mind and their eyes and all that. So by keeping people in that state and teaching it, perpetuating it, eventually, instead of just one person waking up and trying to affect all of society, there's going to be multiple people wake up all at once, which is kind of like this big conscious awareness shift happening right now, where all these people are waking up, and a lot of them are coming on YouTube and having podcasts and all this, trying to explain this to people and affecting other people. We're having this big this big virus going through people, waking people up. People realizing they don't have to work, but people are realizing this and they're still working because, they're trapped by the material possessions, they're trapped by their mortgages, their car loans, and all this crap. And this is one of the reasons I started my thing. I walked around, I have videos on here walking around my yard showing my house I bought, my 2 cars, and stating and giving you guys the books that I've used, the spells I've used, everything I've used to make the manifestations happen, to stay home and not have to work. And that was the reason of coming on here and doing this. Maybe a part of me thought I was going to catch on so fast that I was going to become big and I wouldn't have to work anymore. That didn't happen, obviously. And now I'm at the realization that I paid back my debt, my slavery debt, basically. And I'm not doing it for that anymore. Now, my choice to go back to work is to not... Well, let me read what I got here, because it probably worded it better than what I'm going to say here. You become aware, enlightened, instead of trying to oppress, persecute those who persecuted you. You try to transmute and fix the problem, such as like MLK, Martin Luther King. And if you don't get stuck on the wheel of reincarnation and become more dense and worse as we go to now, we think we're slaves, but maybe we are paying back our karma for all the terrible things we've done to each other. And once you go and continue to go through an awakening, initiation, and find passion and purpose, and be able to not only enjoy life, but be prosperous and abundant and financial health and all types of wealth. And it's going to depend on if you help yourself, then help others, and instead of being a disgruntled employee, blaming everyone except yourself and thinking you're a slave, and either continue to do it and be a hypocrite and have an internal battle with yourself, or like me, you end up creating a circumstance that allows you to lose or leave your job and eventually use magic to stay at home to study and figure this out while enjoying your life. But ultimately, you might be able to actually stay home, and I might be able to sustain that. I'm not convinced that I can't. I actually think I can be able to stay home and keep doing magic and doing that. Now, with my wife not agreeing with that, it creates a lot of disharmonious things between me and her. And maybe she's one of those things that I'm attached to that I don't want to lose. So I'm willing to go back to work. But I'm willing to go back to work on my grounds now. I'm doing it for me. I'm doing it so that, yes, I can use magic, and I've been successful using magic, and I've not only gotten 10 grand 4 times, but I've gotten a bunch of little money. I've gotten not lottery tickets like millions or anything, but I've gotten small amounts when I needed cash fast, and I was able to do sigils to win on bingo tickets and keno tickets and get it, and I was able to get other things to manifest, So I've been very successful with magic. But if I was to have a job that, I can semi-enjoy, that I don't mind doing, that doesn't make me just stay at home and being bored and upset and having to ponder and think about the existence of life and how this all works, being like this a philosopher without a degree, basically, at home, maybe working will help me have more experiences like that. It'll help me draw more correspondences. It'll help me interact with people. And the type of job that I chose is kind of a dangerous one, that I can do a almost a scientific experiment with. I'm not going to get into too much detail about that, but the job I chose to do that I'm going to be starting working actually tomorrow is dealing with old electrical equipment. Let's just say that has some dangerous stuff in it. And the facility I work at deals with one dangerous component that is, I guess, a cancer carcinogen, potentially a cancer carcinogen, meaning, the way they process it is completely safe and it doesn't create a cancer carcinogen. However, if there isn't a facility like the one I'm working at and you're exposed to this stuff prior to the process that they have excelled at or whatever, then yes, that cancer carcinogen can it doesn't go in your body through water, or it doesn't I forget how they worded that, but basically through fats and oil, this carcinogen can get into your body, meaning, by touching it, breathing it in, ingesting it, obviously, even your eyes, not your ears, but your eyes. So there's like three or four entries to your body. And basically, we have fats and we have oils in our body, right? So, and anybody who's been through a detox knows that whenever you start losing fat off your skin, any toxins you took in that created that fat, basically. If you look at me, you're going to see a lot of acne on my face. The reason for this acne is, probably twofold. But the main reason would be all the crap I've eaten in the past. All the, whatever, it's the animals or just the chocolate bars, the candy and all that, doesn't matter. Whatever caused it, okay? There's toxins in the food I was eating. And I had lots of fat. Like I was 220 pounds at one point, and right now I'm at like 169 to 175. I very much fluctuate depending on how much water I drink, how much I eat, vice versa, if I do any exercise. So as you lose weight, all the toxins that were in the food you ate that created the fat that is in your body, when you lose that fat, those toxins get released and they come out through your pores, is one of the ways anyways. There's multiple ways: pee, shit, whatever, sweat, and most sweat would be kind of like your pores. So these toxins come out through your pores and they can create acne and stuff like that, So the stuff I'm dealing with at this job, if it gets absorbed by your skin or comes in your body, it may not do any harm. But eventually, if you lose that weight, then the toxins come out, then that cancer carcinogen is released into your system. Therefore, it could create a disease. So, by knowing what I know about magic and the fact that if you put fear into your anxiety, stress, ideas, thoughts, that can create either what you want or what you don't want. Meaning, if you put loving emotion into becoming rich or a successful parent or a successful fucking astronaut, and, you obviously have to put forth action towards that, try to become a fucking pilot, at least, of a plane, and eventually work your way up. Maybe join the military, then continue to do this magic, then eventually you might get the opportunity to fly that jet, the plane to outer space, if such a thing exists. So it works both ways, the negative way or the positive way. So being exposed to this, and I mean, most people are going to say this is a fucked up experience to do. You're fucking with your life. But I truly, I believe that whenever you die, it depends on how you get to go up the hierarchy or not, if you're in fear. And I don't believe I would be in fear upon death, even if I got something like, quote unquote, the sign of June, or sorry, the June to the July sign in astrology, except the different meaning for that word. If I was to develop something like that, obviously I don't want to say it, whatever. I may call it a superstition, but so the point of all this is, I'm going back to work, even though I know I can stay home and I can manifest money, but I don't want to keep putting a strain on my relationship with my wife. And I don't want to just have to manifest money to pay the bills and not be able to have extras for the kids to do certain things. I want to actually have more than enough. So if I can still do the magic and work a job and have a paycheck that covers the bills, and then the magic is just extra money coming in that I can eventually find something I want to do or create a business that can sustain itself so I don't have to work this job anymore, then great. But to stay at home and just hope for the best and try to keep doing magic without putting forth the action, it's just eventually, I believe I would eventually not get my manifestations to happen, is what I truly think. I think there's only so much you can ask for and then stay at home and whatever. And plus, like I said, my daughter's going to be 4 next year. Well, she's turning 3 this October, so next October she turns 4, which technically we could probably start her school the following year, because she would still be 4 upon the school starting in September, but then turn 5. But anyway, so I would only have 1 to 2 more years home with her anyways, and it probably is important to get her to play with other children right now as well, at least for 1 year. So all that put into, a perspective, this is why I'm doing this. I believe that I don't have to be a slave anymore and pay for the karma that, in past lives I may have been that Auschwitz camp guard, and this is why I like listening to Jordan Peterson, because he puts it in perspective. When you take that idea of how you're more likely to, instead of being that person who would have did the Underground Railroad and helped people get out of that, there's more of a chance that you would have been somebody oppressing somebody else than you would have been that savior type. There's way more of a chance that you would have been someone who was a dick and used these people for malicious intentions. So you take that idea that you're most likely one of these bad people, and you add it to the fact that Dolores Cannon says, if you were someone being oppressed, then eventually your next time you'd be an oppressor. And, whether that's because you don't need to suffer anymore because you've been suffering too much and it's God's way of making you not suffer. Well, this time we'll put her on the good side so she's not being oppressed against, or it's just the way it works. You get everybody to play every role, This time you're going to be German, this time you're going to be Austrian, this time you're going to be American, this time you'll be Canadian, this time you'll be Chinese. Every reincarnation, you're somebody different. But because of that, every time you reincarnated, you might have been a slave, or you might have been the person who had slaves. So, and now in today's day and age, there's a lot of talk about how everybody is a slave who is working, essentially. So we traded in being slave owners to being the slave itself. And the point I guess I'm trying to say is that I believe that in some small way that this is part of everyone's karma. You have to slave away because you owned slaves at one point. This is part of this transition. And overall, we're taught that we have to work and do these things because, it's better to have a job and have a purpose and have meaning, go to work, make money so you feel like you earn something than to just stay at home and not feel anything. Because if you see people on disability and welfare and stuff like that, you kind of piss their life away and they're not really happy, even if they have not a lot of things and they have extra money and they play video games all day and they have their pot and their drugs and all this shit, they're still not happy, even though they have everything they want and they don't have to work. Whereas there's a lot more people that work a job that find meaning and feel like their life means something while they're working. And in my experience, when I was working, except for the last few months, I was generally happy, and now I've been off this whole time thinking this is what I wanted, but I wasn't very happy. I was doing a lot of things that would suggest that I'm not happy. And, there was times that I thought, maybe I was under attack, demon, whatever, because of all the shit I was looking at. But really, I think it was just my psyche telling me that, you need something, you need a job, you need something to do, because that's why you don't feel happy, because you're not really doing anything about it. So when I added the slavery and all this other stuff and put it all in perspective, instead of going to work and thinking I'm just working for somebody or I'm a slave in this big fucking corrupt system where money is not real and all this shit. No, I'm not doing it for that. I'm doing that to have something to do, to find a purpose, to, move my life ahead instead of just standing still and pondering the great mystery of life. It's a lot easier to figure out things whenever you're around people doing new things or whatever, than just sitting at home and going on the internet and looking at stuff that may or may not be real. So that was kind of the thing I kind of realized a couple of days ago, which really helped when I came into the knowingness that, how did I put it? I truly think that in a way I can't explain with the English language, but I know and feel that this is right and real and true. And I mean about the whole slavery debt thing. We work and in this system because we're paying back this debt. But I truly believe that it's been enough years that everybody's already paid back this debt, and we're just waiting for this quote-unquote awakening to happen for everybody. But just because you stop working, you stay home, and even if you're able to manifest money and continue to pay your bills and then find a nice balance and all that, you still may not have a purpose and feel stagnant, especially if you're doing things like, trying to become balanced and not be too negative or too positive, and you don't have somewhere to go every day. to actually put yourself in real life circumstances where it tests that. It's very easy to stay home and be neutral and just choose what you want to watch and, stay in this nice little happy bubble. But to truly be tested to see if you are neutral, then you kind of have to go out there and be tested by it. And so instead of choosing to stay home, I'm choosing to go to work. And by making it a choice and not just working because I have to, it's a little bit better. It's a little bit easier, and it comes into the whole choosing responsibility thing that Jordan Peterson teaches. Young men in the States in their 30s, the same age as me, 33, have the suicide rate at an all-time high. And I can honestly understand why, especially if they had a job and they no longer have a job and they no longer feel like they have a purpose. I could totally understand them feeling like this because I kind of know the feeling all too well. And that's not something I would ever do, or I don't think I would anyways, but I understand it. And by even doing a job you think is stupid and pointless, by giving yourself responsibility, I have more than enough responsibility with the 4 children and all that, but even that I can take for granted and, is what it is, and start playing the blame game on my wife for things which, aren't her fault either, and just start pointing the finger at everybody else. But instead of doing that, I'm going to point the finger at myself and realize that all these problems are happening because of my choices. And as much as the last, 3 years have been enlightening, off and on from a couple jobs there, a roofing job and a factory job that didn't last very long, either one, but basically being off for the last little bit has basically taught me that I kind of need to work to have meaning in my life. And it does suck if you're tired and you come home and you can't enjoy your children and all that, but at the same sense, if all your children are in school at the same time as you're working, well, that's something you have to overcome. And how are you going to overcome it? By staying home and not working? Well, then you're just creating a new set of problems. So basically, by going back to work and being able to come home and enjoy them instead of just fucking blaming my job for being miserable and blaming them for being too excited and blaming everybody else but myself, it's going to be my time and my job to figure out if I can overcome that or not, if I can actually work all day, come home, and have the energy or not, because all the metaphysical studies I've done tell you that you have and always have within you all the energy you're ever going to fucking need. Energy is in the air. The life molecule that scientists are trying to find is in the air we breathe. And that's how life is sustained. Something the Eastern people call prana, something the Chinese people call qi, or different places in China or Taoism call it Qui-Gon, or Qigong. There's so many different words for the same thing that we can't see. It's kind of like ultraviolet rays. We can't see it, but we know they're there. So that energy is within you, and all you have to do is be in the right state of mind to do it. So I guess ultimately that's what this comes down to, is I'm going to be practicing staying in the right state of mind while working this time, and not allowing my mind and the internet and fear-based media and all this shit to tell me that I'm a slave and I'm just working to pay taxes and whatever the case is. I'm now doing it for myself, to put myself on the test, to put myself on the line. That little science experiment aside, even though I think it's pretty cool that I'm going to be around something that can cause cancer, and I'm going to do everything in my power to not have it cause anything, and that might mean completely ignoring it and not giving it any power by focusing on it. And say it does happen, and I'm going to put myself to the test and be able to get rid of it. Not that I want that to happen. That's not wood, but I knocked it on anyways. That aside, the ultimate test is to be able to go to a job all day, and this is going to be a shift work job. So I'm starting in a pretty, depending on your life, it could be a good thing or a bad thing. With having 4 kids, I don't think it's necessarily a good thing, but point is, the test is going to be able to work all day and see if I can come home and still have the energy to help around here, clean up the house, play with the kids, and enjoy my children. I didn't want to work because I wanted to stay home with my kid. But truth be told, if I'm only at work for 8 hours, they're in daycare or school for 8 hours, I'm not going to see them anyways. I'm not going to get in the whole fact that they probably shouldn't go to school, and school is designed to hurt them and all that. Problem is, our society has school, and until we have a society or a different option that the majority can agree on to get rid of school and have a new thing come in instead of school, then that's the norm, and you have to follow the norm basically, or else you could be punished, which isn't right, but it is what it is. But if they're gone all day and I'm gone all day, well, then when we meet up together, then the experiment is going to be to have enough energy to enjoy them and leave my shit
at work. Anything that stresses me out at work stays at work, And then once I come in the door, I come in, And knowing what I know about magic, it'd be pretty easy to create a thought form and leave it at work, Create some kind of servitor, and he stays at my job to protect me from whatever. And then another one at home to protect my children, That's how I'm kind of looking at it. I think it's going to be a very well, not intrinsic, but very, I don't know, very fun exercise. And, just that idea alone makes it worth the while. Because, truth be told, there's sometimes where I think about it, it's like, fuck, I'm really going to miss my baby. But then I think about what I'm about to do and how much it could benefit everybody in my family by knowing what I know, by being able to either beat cancer by actually being around something that could cause cancer, which nobody knows how cancer is caused. However, we do know some things that do cause cancer without a doubt, and what I'm going to be around, I guess, apparently is one of them. So that's kind of the point. Oh, sorry, I got my nose right. I need to clean it. So I'm going to end it here, but I hope everybody enjoyed. Yeah, that's what I had to say about that. And the next episode on Spreaker is going to talk about the same shit, but more in depth. So going by the last 2 videos, if you like what you heard, I'm going to tear this apart even more than I already did. And right now I got to go get smoked, though, because I just smoked the last one and I'm kind of dying.